The courtroom was packed that morning, whispering spectators, bored reporters, and a stern-faced judge who had seen it all. At the defendant's table sat a scrawny teenager in a wrinkled hoodie, his messy hair half covering his eyes. He looked like every other kid dragged in for petty offenses, shoulders slumped, avoiding eye contact. The charge? Trespassing at a private tech facility. The judge barely glanced at the file before sighing. "Young man, this is the third time you've been in my courtroom. Do you enjoy wasting everyone's time?" The teen flinched but stayed silent. The prosecutor smirked. "Your Honor, given his record, we're recommending juvenile detention. Maybe that'll teach him some respect." The judge nodded. "Sounds reasonable. Any objections?" That's when everything changed. The teen straightened up, his voice calm but firm. "Actually, yes. I'd like to represent myself." The courtroom burst into laughter, even the bailiff chuckled. The judge rolled his eyes. "Son, this isn't a TV show. You're in real trouble." The teen didn't blink. Article 12, Section 3 of the State Legal Code guarantees my right to self-representation. "Unless you're denying me that right, Your Honor." Dead silence. The judge's eyebrows shot up. The prosecutor's smirk vanished. Then the teen did something unbelievable. He pulled out a law textbook from his backpack, flipped to a marked page, and slid it toward the judge. Page 472 outlines precedent for dismissing trespassing charges when no malicious intent is proven. "Security footage shows I never entered the building. I was only examining their externally exposed server ports from the parking lot." The prosecutor's face turned red. That's classified infrastructure." The teen tilted his head. "Then why is it accessible from a public parking lot?" The judge's gavel hovered mid-air. For the first time in his career, he was speechless. Because this wasn't just some troublemaker. This kid knew the law better than the lawyers. And he was just getting started. The courtroom buzzed as the judge finally lowered his gavel without slamming it. He adjusted his glasses, studying the scrawny teen with new interest. "Bailiff, clear the gallery for recess. I want to speak with this young man in chambers." As spectators grumbled and shuffled out, the prosecutor leaned toward his assistant. "Who is this kid?" The assistant flipped through files. "Says here he's a 17-year-old high school dropout. No lawyer in the family. Just a bunch of public library fines for law books." Meanwhile, in the judge's private office, the teen sat stiffly in a leather chair, hands folded. The judge poured himself coffee but didn't offer any. "Let's cut the act. Where'd you really learn to quote legal code like that?" The teen's fingers tapped nervously against his knee. "Your Honor, with respect, does my education matter if my arguments are legally sound?" The judge set his cup down hard. "It matters if someone's feeding you lines. Now answer the question." A long silence. Then the teen reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a battered composition notebook. He slid it across the desk. The judge flipped it open. Page after page contained meticulous notes, case law summaries, amendments analyzed line by line, even hand-drawn courtroom strategy diagrams. The margins were crammed with questions like, why does precedent favor corporations over individuals in tech trespass cases? The judge's stern expression faltered. "You wrote all this?" The teen nodded. "Since I was 14. After the first time I got arrested for." He trailed off. "For what?" "Testing security systems. Not hacking. Just seeing how far I could walk into places before getting stopped." The teen met the judge's gaze properly for the first time. "I got curious why some laws protect companies more than people. So I started reading." The judge leaned back, steepling his fingers. This wasn't some scripted performance. The kid was self-taught. Back in the courtroom, the prosecutor was sweating. His phone buzzed, a message from the tech company's legal team, do not let him access our security logs. When proceedings resumed, the judge made an unexpected ruling. Given the defendant's demonstrated legal knowledge and the unusual circumstances, I'm allowing self-representation. Trial adjourned until Thursday. As the teen gathered his notebook, the prosecutor intercepted him. Listen, kid. You're in over your head. Take the plea deal now, or what? The teen adjusted his glasses the prosecutor just noticed had lenses as thick as law textbooks. You'll violate my Sixth Amendment rights by threatening counsel? Interesting strategy. The bailiff had to step between them. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Who's helping you? One shouted. The teen paused at the bottom step. The same people helping anyone who reads. He pointed across the street to the public library. The janitor hesitated before slipping the notebook into his cart. He knew he should return it, but that underlined phrase gnawed at him. They're hiding something bigger. As he mopped near the judge's empty chambers, he made a decision. At dawn, the notebook appeared mysteriously on the judge's desk with a sticky note, found in gallery. Thought you should see the last 10 pages. Meanwhile, the teen sat in his tiny apartment, staring at his empty hands where the notebook should be. His fingers twitched toward his laptop, then stopped. No digital traces. He grabbed a burner phone instead. The judge discovered why the janitor had been so insistent. The notebook's final pages weren't legal notes, they were a meticulously documented investigation. Security camera timestamps from the tech company's parking lot. Employee badge logs. Even a hand-drawn map showing where the building's external server vents aligned with something called Project Sentinel. The judge's blood ran cold. He recognized that name from a sealed case last year. His phone rang, the courthouse's IT director. Your Honor. We just got a subpoena request from the teen's email. For all security footage from our parking lot cameras facing the tech company. The judge's grip tightened on the notebook. This wasn't just trespassing anymore. The kid was hunting something. At the tech company's headquarters, executives watched news coverage of the case with growing unease. The CEO turned to their head of security. Find out what that kid really knows. Before he gets to those servers. The security chief nodded, then made a call to someone with no official connection to the company. The teen felt eyes on him as he walked to the library that afternoon. He ducked into an alley, heart pounding, and saw them, 2 men in nondescript suits pretending to window shop across the street. Amateurs. He'd been followed before. Circling through backstreets, he entered the library's staff entrance. The elderly law librarian didn't look up from her desk. Section 34B. The books you requested came in. Hidden between volumes of corporate law histories, the teen found what he needed, a flash drive taped inside a book's dust jacket. He pocketed it just as the library's front door chimed. The suits had found him. The teen slipped out the fire exit as the men argued with the librarian about patron privacy laws, a mistake, because she'd worked there since the Dewey Decimal System was new. By the time they got through her, the teen was gone. Back in his apartment, the flash drive revealed its contents, blueprints. Not of the tech company's building, but of their underground expansion from 2 years ago, one that didn't match city permits. And in the corner of every page, that name again, Project Sentinel. The teen's hands shook as he cross-referenced the blueprints with his notes. The morning of the trial arrived with a heavy summer storm. Rain lashed against the courthouse windows as the teen entered, his soaked hoodie dripping onto the marble floor. The bailiff rolled his eyes. No wet clothes in the courtroom. Without breaking stride, the teen peeled off the hoodie to reveal a slightly wrinkled but perfectly presentable button-down shirt underneath. Article 3, Section 12 of Courthouse Regulations prohibits disruptive attire. Damp fabric doesn't qualify. The bailiff's mouth hung open as the teen walked past. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Reporters packed the gallery, sensing this wasn't just another trespassing case anymore. The tech company had sent 3 additional lawyers, all in identical black suits. The judge entered with unusual haste. "Before we begin, I have..." "Your Honor," the teen interrupted, standing immediately. "I move to introduce new evidence under the wire fraud statute of 1934. The prosecutor choked on his coffee. "That's a federal law." "Which applies," the teen continued calmly, "when interstate communications are involved. Like the wireless data your client's been stealing from public streets." He placed a thick folder on the defense table. "I have documentation." The judge's eyes flicked to a plain brown envelope on his own desk, delivered anonymously that morning. He hadn't opened it yet. Now his fingers itched too. The lead defense attorney shot up. "This is outrageous. A minor with no legal standing can't just..." "Actually," the judge said quietly, "he can. The 1934 statute allows any citizen to petition for injunctive relief when evidence of wire fraud exists." He turned to the teen. "Proceed." What followed wasn't so much a legal defense as an exposé. The teen connected dots no one had seen. The tech company's mysterious Project Sentinel. The unpermitted underground construction. The antenna arrays disguised as vents. The petabytes of cellular data flowing daily into their servers. When he projected security camera timestamps showing company employees physically altering the antennas at night, even the court reporters stopped typing to stare. The defense team whispered frantically among themselves. One attorney pulled out his phone, until the judge snapped, "Counselor, unless you're about to demonstrate the exact wire fraud we're discussing, put that away." Then came the bombshell. The teen played a recording, a voicemail left on his burner phone. "Stop digging if you want to stay out of real prison." The voice, the teen noted, matches the tech company's head of security. Who, incidentally, has no warrant for surveillance activities in this jurisdiction. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel, once, twice, then froze as his gaze landed on someone in the back row. A journalist, who'd been present at every hearing but never took notes. A man now slipping quietly toward the exit. The judge made a split-second decision. "Bailiff, detain everyone in this room until we verify their credentials." As chaos ensued, the teen remained perfectly still at the defense table. His eyes locked with the judge's. A silent understanding passed between them. This had gone far beyond a trespassing charge. The judge finally opened that mysterious envelope. Inside, photos of the teen, taken over weeks. Following him to the library. Watching his apartment. And a single typed note. The courthouse lockdown lasted 3 chaotic hours. Federal agents materialized out of nowhere, demanding everyone's phones. The journalist vanished during the confusion, but not before the bailiff caught a glimpse of his ID badge, Department of Defense. The teen sat motionless through it all, watching as the judge whispered urgently with a silver-haired man in a nondescript suit. When the agents finally released everyone, the judge made an unusual announcement: trial postponed indefinitely. New jurisdiction. As the crowd dispersed, the prosecutor grabbed the teen's arm. "What the hell did you just start?" The teen pried the man's fingers off gently but firmly. "The ending." Then he walked straight past the reporters into the stormy night. He never made it home. Security cameras would later show a black sedan pulling up beside him 2 blocks from the courthouse. The teen got in voluntarily. Then all footage from that intersection mysteriously corrupted for exactly 17 minutes. The judge learned about the disappearance at 3:17 a.m. when his home phone rang. A distorted voice said only, "They have the boy. Sentinel is compromised." Then the line went dead. At that same moment, in a nondescript office building 30 miles away, the teen sat across from a gray-eyed woman who didn't bother with introductions. "You've become quite the inconvenience," she said, sliding a folder toward him. Inside were photos of his childhood home, his estranged mother's workplace, his library study corral. The teen didn't flinch. Article 13 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights protects freedom of movement. This constitutes unlawful detainment. The woman almost smiled. Not when you're material witness to a national security matter. She opened her laptop, showing live footage of the judge's house surrounded by unmarked vehicles. "Your Honor, friend is about to learn some hard truths." Back in his chambers, the judge was already discovering them. The plain brown envelope's second layer contained military procurement records. The tech company had been paid $87 million for Sentinel Phase 1. The judge's blood ran cold. He'd presided over patent cases long enough to recognize what the documents described: a surveillance system that could bypass encryption by harvesting data directly from hardware radio signals. His private line rang again. This time it was the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court. "Burn everything. They're invoking the state secrets privilege." The judge stood at his window, watching shadows move in his driveway. He made his choice quickly. At dawn, 3 things happened in rapid succession. Every major news outlet received an anonymous email with the subject, "Public Interest, Project Sentinel." The tech company's stock plummeted 43% in pre-market trading. The teen walked out of that office building alone, unharmed, clutching a single sheet of paper. The document was a non-disclosure agreement, one he'd refused to sign. But they'd let him go anyway. Because written in the margin, in the gray-eyed woman's precise handwriting, was an addendum: subject retains right to pursue civil action regarding initial trespassing charge. A loophole. A tiny crack in the dam. The teen went straight to the only place they wouldn't dare intercept him, the steps of the state capitol, where a press conference about education funding was underway. He waited until cameras were live, then stepped into frame holding his unsigned NDA high. 20 million people watched as a reporter asked, "Young man, are you part of this demonstration?" The teen's reply would lead every evening newscast: "No ma'am. I'm evidence." The state capitol erupted into chaos the moment the teen said those 2 words, "I'm evidence." Camera flashes exploded around him as reporters shoved microphones in his face. The education officials behind him exchanged panicked looks, unsure whether to usher him away or capitalize on the sudden media attention. The teen stood perfectly still, letting the frenzy swirl around him. He knew they couldn't touch him now, not with 20 million eyes watching live. A brave reporter broke through the scrum. "What do you mean your evidence?" He held up the unsigned NDA. "This proves our government is paying private companies to spy on citizens without warrants." His voice didn't shake. "And I can prove it." That's when the police moved in. Not the regular officers, black-clad tactical units with no insignia. They formed a wall between the teen and the cameras. "Time to go, kid," their leader growled, gripping his arm. The teen didn't resist. But as they marched him toward an unmarked van, he called over his shoulder, words carefully calculated to spread like wildfire. "Check the courthouse basement. Server rack B14. Within minutes, #server rack B14 was trending globally. Meanwhile, the judge sat in a sterile interrogation room, facing 2 stone-faced men from an agency he'd only heard about in whispers. "You compromised a $1 billion program," the taller one said. "For what?" "Some delinquent who—" "That delinquent," the judge interrupted, "just exposed your illegal surveillance in open court. Which makes him a whistleblower, not a criminal." He leaned forward. "And you can't make me disappear without drawing more attention to his claims." The agents exchanged glances. They hadn't expected this level of pushback from a state judge. Back at the Capitol, the teen's prediction proved accurate. Citizen journalists swarmed the courthouse basement. What they found wasn't just shocking, it was laughably obvious once someone looked. A server rack marked B14, humming quietly in the corner, routing all its data through the tech company's Sentinel network. The courthouse IT director, when confronted live on camera, turned pale. That's just our backup system." "Then why," asked a tech-savvy reporter, "is it sending packets to a military IP address every 6 seconds?" The dam was breaking. In a secure facility miles away, the gray-eyed woman watched multiple screens with growing frustration. "Get me the boy," she ordered. Before her phone buzzed. A one-word alert: leak. Someone, likely the judge, had released the full Sentinel procurement documents to every major news outlet. The documents showed not just surveillance, but plans to sell the technology to foreign governments. The teen, now detained in a windowless room, sensed the shift when his interrogator's earpiece crackled with urgent commands. The man's posture changed, less confident, more calculating. That's when the teen played his last card. He reached into his shoe and produced a tiny USB drive. "You missed this during your search." He slid it across the table. "It's encrypted. The password gets released automatically if I disappear." The interrogator stared at the drive like it might explode. "What's on it?" "Proof that Sentinel was used to spy on 3 senators' personal devices." The teen leaned back. "Guess which party they belong to." The room went very still. Outside, the world was waking up to a constitutional crisis. Protesters surrounded the courthouse. Senators demanded hearings. The tech company's CEO resigned to spend more time with family. And in a quiet law library across town, an elderly librarian placed a single new book on the shelf, a donated volume no one had ordered. Inside its hollowed-out pages rested a judge's badge and a handwritten note. The USB drive sat between them like a live grenade with the pin pulled. The interrogator, now visibly sweating, reached for it slowly. "Don't," the teen warned. "It's biometric locked to my thumbprint. Try to force it, and the contents upload to 6 major news outlets automatically." A muscle twitched in the interrogator's jaw. "What do you want?" The teen leaned forward, elbows on the metal table. "3 things. 1. The judge walks free within the hour. 2. My trespassing charges get dropped permanently. 3. He paused, letting the silence stretch. "A congressional hearing where I testify under oath about Sentinel." Across town, the judge was already free, in a manner of speaking. He'd been released onto the rooftop helipad of the detention center, where a military helicopter waited with spinning blades. The message was clear: get in quietly, or this gets messy. But the judge had spent 30 years interpreting subtle messages. As the agents led him toward the chopper, he suddenly grabbed his chest, gasping. When they bent to check on him, he whispered 2 words that made both men freeze. "Senator Whitmore's iPhone." The name of one of the politicians the teen had referenced. The agents exchanged a terrified look. How much did this judge know? That hesitation gave the judge exactly what he needed. From his pocket came a shrill, piercing alarm, his emergency judicial alert button, broadcasting his location to every courthouse in the state. Within minutes, news helicopters were circling the detention center. The agents had no choice but to escort him back inside, this time through the front doors, in full view of the cameras. At that same moment, the teen was making his own move. He'd been left alone in the interrogation room, to consider his options, which was exactly what he'd predicted. From his sleeve, he produced a paperclip, bent into a precise shape during the earlier pat-down. 30 seconds later, he'd picked the lock on his cuffs. 2 minutes after that, he'd accessed the interrogation room's computer using a password he'd watched his captor type earlier. By the time guards rushed in, he'd done 3 things. Sent the USB contents to his own encrypted cloud storage. Triggered an automatic email release to Congress. Left a single browser tab open showing live footage of the judge's release. On screen, the judge was now holding an impromptu press conference on the detention center steps. His words boomed through the interrogation room speakers. "I can confirm Project Sentinel collected data on private citizens without warrants. What I can't confirm is why our government is trying to silence a teenager instead of answering for it." The guards hesitated, their orders suddenly unclear. The teen took advantage of their confusion, walking straight past them into the hallway. "Going somewhere?" a voice asked. The gray-eyed woman stood blocking the exit, holding a manila envelope. She tossed it at the teen's feet. Photos spilled out, grainy surveillance shots of the elderly law librarian meeting with known whistleblowers. "Your book-loving friend has secrets too," she said. "Walk away now, or we expose her." The teen didn't blink. "Do it." She'd consider it an honor. For the first time, the woman looked uncertain. Her phone buzzed, a notification that made her go pale. The teen could guess why. Congress had just announced emergency hearings on unlawful surveillance. And they'd subpoenaed him as the first witness. The woman's mask finally slipped. "You have no idea what you've started." The teen retrieved his backpack from a nearby table. "That's where you're wrong." He pulled out a thick legal document, the original trespassing charge paperwork. This was never about me breaking into their property." He pointed to the case number. "It was about them breaking into ours." As he walked out into the sunlight, cameras flashing, the teen realized something surprising: he wasn't scared anymore. Because the truth had a way of protecting itself. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, the whole country would hear it. The congressional hearing room buzzed with nervous energy as the teen took his seat at the witness table. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered, and a dozen senators adjusted their microphones with varying degrees of discomfort. The teen kept his hands folded neatly on the table, no notes, no laptop, just a single sheet of paper face down in front of him. Senator Whitmore, the committee chair, leaned forward. "Let the record show this is an official hearing regarding unlawful surveillance under Project Sentinel. Young man, you may begin your testimony." The teen took a deep breath. Then he flipped over his paper, revealing not talking points, but a hand-drawn diagram of the courthouse basement server rack. "Your first question," he said calmly, "should be why a military-grade surveillance system was installed in a state courthouse." The room erupted. For 3 explosive hours, the teen walked Congress through his discovery. How the external server vents at the tech company were actually data collection arrays. How courthouses in 12 states had identical server racks installed during maintenance upgrades. How judges' private case notes had appeared in sealed corporate lawsuits. When Senator Whitmore asked how a teenager uncovered all this, the teen finally smiled. Because no one expects the kid in the hoodie to be paying attention. Then came the bombshell. The elderly law librarian entered the hearing room, escorted by 2 federal marshals. She walked with a cane, but her voice was steady as she swore the oath. "My name is Eleanor Voss," she said. "I served as chief counsel for the Senate Intelligence Committee from 1987 to 2003. Even the teen's jaw dropped. His book-loving mentor had been one of DC's most powerful lawyers. Voss continued, "I've been tracking Sentinel's illegal capabilities for years. When this young man started checking out legal texts, I recognized a kindred spirit." She turned to the committee. "He didn't just stumble onto this conspiracy, he outsmarted it using the very laws they thought no one would bother reading." The hearing took an even wilder turn when the judge entered, carrying a stack of documents from an unexpected source. "These were delivered to my chambers anonymously last night," he announced. Internal memos proving the tech company knew their surveillance violated the Fourth Amendment, and did it anyway. As the evidence mounted, Senator Whitmore's face grew increasingly pale. Then came the moment no one expected. The teen stood up and addressed him directly. "Senator, would you like to explain why your personal attorney was on the tech company's payroll?" The room went dead silent. Whitmore's mouth opened and closed like a fish. The teen didn't wait for an answer, he simply played a recording from his phone. The gray-eyed woman's voice filled the room. "Tell Whitmore his shares will be worthless if this hearing happens." Chaos erupted. News alerts blared across the country. Within hours, the tech company's board surrendered internal documents. Federal judges issued warrants for 6 executives. The president announced a full review of military surveillance programs. But the teen's work wasn't done. 1 week later, he stood before a different kind of audience, a packed law school auditorium. The dean had invited him to speak after his trespassing charges were not just dropped, but expunged. "You all think the law is about books and precedents," he told the students. "It's not. It's about people willing to stand up when something's wrong." He nodded to the back row, where Judge Carter and Eleanor Voss sat smiling. "And sometimes, about people who give kids second chances." As he walked off stage, a first-year law student stopped him. "How'd you do it?" "Really?" The teen shrugged, adjusting his glasses, the same thick lenses, but now in sleek frames courtesy of a certain librarian. "Same way you eat an elephant. One law at a time." Epilogue. The teen received a full scholarship to any law school of his choice. He chose the local state university. The judge was appointed to oversee the Sentinel case prosecutions. Eleanor Voss came out of retirement to lead a new privacy rights institute. And the courthouse server rack? It now sits in the Smithsonian, labeled Exhibit A, Democracy Works When You Pay Attention. As for the hoodie, he still wears it sometimes. Just for old time's sake.